Lesson 20, Nadi Sodhana Pranayama. And we read from the Hatha Yoga Pradipika, chapter 2, Sutra 1. The yogin, having perfected themselves in the asanas, should practice pranayama according to the instructions of their guru, with the senses under control, conforming to a beneficial and moderate diet. Every time when an exercise is introduced, you notice with the kriyas also, it is mentioned that you should learn this from a guru or a teacher or a siddhi or a master, which means you cannot learn this from a book. It means you need to learn this from somebody who understands how this works, somebody who's initiated. Every exercise that is introduced ends with a sentence like that, that you must learn the exercise under the guidance of a guru or a word similar to that. With your senses under control means not distracted, not scattered. You practice asana, you're on this path already for a while, you are already physically and mentally conditioned to some extent, more focused than before, and it indicates, the senses under control indicates that this is a concentration exercise, a mind control exercise. It's part of the meditation. Conforming to a beneficial and moderate diet is explained in the first chapter, which we will start reading in 2 weeks, I think. We live in a time, it's more important even now than in the past. If you go to the supermarket, you will see that 80% of all the food products is processed. And many of those products are actually not so beneficial. Beneficial means nutritious, not burdening your body and your energy levels and your digestion. And the most beneficial foods are simply pure foods. Foods that are not processed or processed very little. Super processed foods already is known are really harmful for people's health. And what proves this is that younger generations are aging much faster than generations that came before them. Moderate diet, if you eat a lot, it makes you tired. Everybody knows that. If you eat small portions, your energy levels remain high. So if you eat, sometimes you have, you eat your favorite food, you take a second serving, you crash. You enjoy the food, of course, that is important, but you always crash after that. So for the purpose of yoga, you need all your energy you can muster, all the energy you can muster. Otherwise, your focus is just not there if you want to do anything like this. Sutra 2. When the energy wanders, the mind is unsteady. But when the energy is still, so the mind is still. And the yogin obtains the power of stillness. Therefore, the energy should be restrained. I think it speaks for itself, but I guess because most people function subconsciously, we're not aware of the restlessness of the mind, leading to lack of focus, restlessness in general. the author here is proposing that if you do pranayama, leading to the energy becoming more canalized and focused, in a very natural way, the mind follows that condition and becomes more calm, quieter, and more focused as a result. It's very interesting this because it also works the other way around. If you do pranayama working on energy control, the mind becomes more focused. I mentioned before that you will notice when you do pranayama before your meditation on nada, you will see that your concentration is better, is deeper. Your experience of your meditation is enhanced as a result. So when the energy is canalized, the mind becomes calm. It also works the other way around. If you just meditate without pranayama and you take control of the thought processes, you reduce the amount of thoughts, the energy becomes sattvic. Energy canalizes as a result of that. So it works both ways. Sutra 3, life is said to exist only so long as there is energy in the body. Its departure, the energy's departure, is death. So one should restrain the energy. Now this is one of those sutras, when taken literally, it leads people to believe that you can avoid dying, that you can live forever if you just dedicate yourself to practicing yoga and pranayama in particular. This is not literal. Life here is vitality. Life here means spirit, functioning of the crown chakra. When there is no vital energy, the spirit dies. That is what death means here. Death means tamas, the condition in which you just physically function, but there is no vitality and no crown chakra functioning to speak of. Sutra 4, when the nadis are full of impurities, the energy does not go into the middle, Shushumna Nadi. How can there be Unmani Avashta? How can there be attainment of the goal? You notice that these sutras are full of riddles, and very difficult to understand for the lay person. But when the nadis are full of impurities, is when we are still full of restlessness and uncontrolled subconscious thought processes that disturb the energy circulation. The energy cannot rise up. Shushumna Nadi, or the middle channel, that is the third channel. There is Ida, responsible for Shiva flow from the top to the bottom. There is Pingala, responsible for Shakti, rising up from the bottom to the top. When those two are relatively harmonious, a third channel comes into being called Shushumna Nadi that allows Shakti or Kundalini energy to rise up and fuel the crown chakra. The crown chakra is not mentioned here directly, but the author uses Unmani Avashta. How can there be Unmani Avashta? The condition of Unmani. That doesn't mean anything to most people, but Unmani is the only 3-syllable mantra attached to the chakras. From the bottom upwards, every chakra has a 1-syllable mantra. Ram, Lam, Vam, Bam, Om. But the mantra of the crown chakra is the only 3-syllable mantra, and it's Unmani. So indirectly he's referring to the activity of the crown chakra. How can the crown chakra function without purified energy channels. How can the energy rise that fuels the crown chakra? How can there be attainment of the goal? The goal is, of course, awakening of the spirit and consciousness, turning on the light. Sutra 5. Only when all the nadis which are full of impurities become purified, then only does the yogin become expert in the control of energy. He is clearly working towards the need for purification of the nadis. Hence, Nadi, Sodhana, Pranayama. Nadi is the energy channels. Sodhana means purification. That is the first pranayama exercise that you will learn today. Sutra 6. So control of energy, pranayama, should be done daily with the mind, through mind control, concentration, in which the sattvika element prevails, until the Sushumna Nadi is free from impurities. Sutra 7. The yogin, assuming the Padmasana, should draw in the energy through the moon, and having retained it as long as possible, should then release it through the sun. This is like Kapalabhati. The Kriya exercise you learned last week, Kapalabhati. Shiva in, through the moon, out through the sun. You will see that he is trying to throw sand in your eyes by using different terminology for the same principle. Here he says sun and moon, but you will see with the rest of the pranayama, Sutra 8, 9 and 10, that every time he uses other terminology to refer to the same issue, to throw people off balance or to confuse people who do not have proper guidance to learn this. He does not want people to learn yoga without proper guidance, thinking that it is dangerous. Remember when Kriya was introduced, he urged you to keep it a secret. Sutra 8 is the start of Nadi Shodhana Pranayama, not Sutra 7. Taking energy in through the Pingala, see, he's using Ida and Pingala now here instead of the sun and the moon. Taking energy in through the Pingala, which is, we know, Shakti energy, the interior should be slowly filled with energy. The interior should be slowly filled with energy. Performing Kumbhaka as prescribed, it should then be released through Ida. This is the first cycle. Most pranayamas exist out of one cycle. Nadi Shodhana Pranayama exists out of 2 cycles. Surya Bindu in the middle of Muladhara Chakra. He tells us to let energy in through Pingala, and then to release energy through Ida, which we know is Shakti in, because Pingala is responsible for Shakti, and Shiva out. I made him a little bit too big. Shiva in, Shakti in. Shakti in, counting to 12. He calls it kumbhaka. Kumbhaka is retention. Counting to 48. And then Shiva out, energy out through Ida. Counting to 24. And the final kumbhaka. Counting to 48. That's the first cycle. Sutra 9 describes the second cycle, and he does that again in a very mysterious way. Energy should be drawn in by the same entrance through which release was made. Actually, you see in the text, there are additional pieces of text in between square brackets. Those have been added long after the book was originally written. Sometimes they're helpful, but most of the times they're not, because they were added by people who were not properly initiated into yoga. So energy should be drawn in by the same through which release was made. Then, having retained the energy to the utmost, it should be released by the other, slowly and never fast, as it will diminish the energy of the body. Slowly and never fast. That is the reason why we count Om 1, Om 2, Om 3. So, energy should be drawn in by the same through which release was made, which was Shiva. Energy in through which release was made in the previous cycle. So, Shiva in. And how does he phrase that? Having retained the energy to the utmost, it should be released by the other. The other being Pingala. So the first cycle you have Shakti in, Shiva out. The second cycle, the opposite. You have Shiva in from the bottom, from the top, Shiva in. 12, counting to 12, Kumbhaka, and Shakti out. Kumbhaka. Let's have a look at Sutra 10, which is basically a repeat of Sutra 8 and 9. Sutra 10, if the energy is drawn in by the Ida, it is ordained that it should be released by the other, Pingala. If drawn in through the Pingala, then having retained it, it should be released through the left, Ida. Those who have perfected themselves in Yama, by continually practicing energy control according to these instructions, through the right and left channels, have their nadis purified in not less than 3 months. So, in the beginning, this is a little bit overwhelming because it involves so many aspects. That is because It is new. You're not familiar with it yet. Of course, you are a little bit already. You've done it before. Especially if you've never done it before, it's a little bit distracting. And in the handout, you noticed that I compared it with learning to drive a car. You both have driven. So you remember probably the very first time that you ever drove a car. You're very nervous. And the person who taught you to drive, whether a family member who wants to help you or an instructor from a driving school, the very first time you drive, they take you to an abandoned parking lot or somewhere where there are no trees and lampposts, where you can do no damage, because it's very overwhelming to drive for the very first time. Because you're supposed to look at where you're going, but you're very conscious of what your hands and feet need to do to drive the car, especially if you have a clutch and a stick shift. But even if it is an automatic, you're still, in the beginning, mentally very busy trying to control all that. And so your eyes are not always on the road, because you're just all over the place. There are all these switches. If it is dark, you need to turn on the light, and it's dark outside, makes it more complicated. There are pedals on the floor that you need to control with your feet. Wipers, if it's raining, etc. So very intimidating in the beginning. But if you keep driving, it becomes intuitive. In the beginning, it's mental, because you need to understand everything that your hands and your feet are doing. And it's impossible. It will inevitably lead to accidents if you keep driving on a mental level. What happens gradually is that if you keep practicing driving, you start driving intuitively. And your eyes are constantly on the road, and you are even aware of what is happening behind you through the left side, right side, and the interior rear view mirrors. And your hands and feet, you're not even aware of what they are doing anymore. You're not thinking of what they are doing anymore. That means that you have become an intuitive driver. It's like a computer system controlling all that, and you can keep your eyes on the road. This is the same. In the beginning, you're all over the place. Oh, Shiva, Shakti, and the counting, and then you have the kumbhaka, the retention. And you maybe ask yourself, is it Shiva or is it Shakti? What am I doing? So first of all, you don't have to worry, because Shiva can only go from the top to the bottom. So if you imagine energy flowing in, it can only be Shiva. You do not have to be concerned that you're doing it wrong by taking in Shakti. And the same with Shakti, of course, at the bottom. If you visualize taking Shakti in, which we learned with Vashti Kriya, sucking up water through the anus, visualizing, it can only be Shakti, can never be Shiva. It cannot reverse. So that's one thing that you can eliminate, one distraction that you can eliminate. And for the rest, it's just like with driving. Repeat the exercise and it becomes intuitive. And as a result, you become more and more focused and less distracted. So, kumbhaka, about the bandhas. There are 3 bandhas. Some people think that bandhas are very powerful and important and mysterious and what have you. That is out of ignorance. We will concern ourselves with the 2 most important bandhas today. That is the throat lock, Jalandhara bandha, and the root lock, Mula bandha. The throat lock First, the superficial way. The throat lock is done by stretching up the neck, tucking in the chin, and the throat is locked. The root lock is the contraction of Muladhara chakra to close off the sun gate. Now, this is how I learned it in a very superficial way, until I realized that these bandhas occur naturally as a result of your focus, your concentration. And they are not gross, like strongly stretching up the neck and tucking in the chin, and then contracting the pelvic bottom muscles to apply the root lock. They do this in Ashtanga yoga. Repetitive contraction of the pelvic bottom muscle, thinking that that is Mula Bandha. That is a disturbing exercise that leads to Shakti domination, that leads to restlessness and sexual arousal. That is not what yoga is supposed to be or meant to be. And that is not Mula Bandha chakra also, Mula Bandha, the root lock. If you pay attention, when you meditate and you're actually concentrating, you become straighter and straighter. So Mula Bandha and Jalandhara Bandha, and also Uddiyana Bandha, the third one, they occur spontaneously because the neck stretches up, not only the neck, but the whole spine stretches up when you concentrate without effort. Naturally, the chin tucks in a little bit, you become very straight, but also the pelvis tilts when the spine becomes straighter. As a result, the muscles in and around the pelvis engage in a subtle way, and there you have the root lock in place. So there is a lot ado about nothing here, but in the beginning, when you learn about it, this is how you understand how it works, but it is a subtle engagement that is happening before you even realize it. And it has already happened before you learned about it, because every time when you meditated and you were relatively focused, you were erect. So the neck was straight, engaged, and the pelvis was engaged, and both of the bandhas were in place as a result, without you realizing it. Uddiyana Bandha is the same. You see in the illustration in the handout a drawing of of a human being with the three bandhas engaged, and you see that the abdomen are pulled back in a vacuum to induce the Uddiyana Bandha. That is gross. The reality is, when you erect in your meditation, very naturally your abdomen pull back. And that is Uddiyana Bandha. So we can eliminate here another distraction, that you're going to be busy trying to implement those three bandhas while you're already busy with the energies and the counting. Just be assured, rest assured, that when you're focused and you're straight, those bandhas are in place and you really don't have to worry too much about it any further. All right, questions? Yeah?
Is there a reason why the arrows only go halfway? Is that connected to how much we should let the energy flow up and down, or should it still go all the way to the top, like when the Shakti energy?
Say again.
So the arrows on your diagrams, they're just showing it up to halfway rather than all the way to the crown. Is that, should we?
Let me do it differently.
I'm just wondering Let the energy flow all the way up to the crown?
No. Be concerned only with the in or outflow of that energy. It will find its way. In the kumbhaka stage, where you're implementing the bandhas, naturally, basically, you're focusing on the counting, but during that stage, the energy is spreading and settling down, transforming your condition. That is the reason why the kumbhaka stage is the longest. When you do an asana, you always take a little rest after it. Most yoga classes, they don't. They go from one to another to another. At worst, they move in the asana. If you do it correctly, you take a little time to allow the energy to settle down, because that is where the magic happens. That is where you feel the sattva settling down. It's the same with pranayama. The most important stage is the kumbhaka. Here you have the trigger, here you have the trigger, but the result is taking place in the kumbhaka. So, Shakti in, Shiva out. The energy will find its way. Don't be too much concerned about that. Here, Shiva in and Shakti out. You don't have to direct that energy anywhere. It involves your whole being, your whole body. So, Nadi Sodhana. With a count of 12, 48, 24, 48. And then concentration on nada, the remainder of the time. Total time goes up to 25 minutes. Yeah, let's have a short break before we start with meditation.